The one thing associated with Milan probably the most this season has been this team takes one step forward and two steps back. Now, even I right now have two pathways I can take. One is of absolute doom and gloom, sell the players, fire the manager, change management, make Jerry Cardinali sell the club, or the other pathway where we try to dissect what went wrong today and what's happening with this team. The fact of the matter is this: in 14 matches, Milan's only won 6 games, their worst start in half a decade. So right now, some really tough conversations have to be had. And we're gonna have them as I give my 4 takeaways from today's match. You guys know how this works: green boxes for good performances, red boxes for bad ones. And the first takeaway from today's match, obviously this is gonna be a red box. And unfortunately, this one has to go out to our captain in Theo Hernandez. The tough part about Theo Hernandez has been the fact that it's been very, very inconsistent. The same thing as the initial saying: one step forward, two steps back. He has a good performance, but then he disappears for a bunch of games. And a match like today, when you're playing against a top side, a side that is fighting clearly for the Scudetto, you're supposed to put in a solid performance as a player. You look at how Theo Hernandez played against Real Madrid. It's a little bit sad, sounds a little bit selfish, but you get the sense that Theo was totally dialed into that match. And even today, he made a good pass to Leao that eventually led to that goal from Alvaro Morata. But if you watch his demeanor in the match against Real Madrid, he seemed so much more dialed in. He seemed so much more motivated and driven to get the right result for his team. And you almost feel like there was a little bit of that personal ego at play there. You let me go, Real Madrid, you sold me out. You didn't let me, play for this team. Now I'm going to come back. I'm going to wear the captain's armband for this Milan side, and I'm going to show you what my team can do. I feel like that's the enthusiasm. That's the drive that you want your captain to bring into pretty much every game, but at least the top big games. And today was one of those, and Theo was arguably one of the weakest players on this team. And I'm not talking about physicality. I'm talking about drive and demeanor from the player that we saw. It didn't seem like he was leading this side to a win today. It seemed like he was partly just disinterested in the match. He obviously played a very important role in Charles de Ketelaere scoring that goal. Now, there has been this weakness that we've seen from Theo Hernandez throughout the entirety of the season. Emerson Royal has taken a lot of flack because he's the new inclusion into the team. Not a lot of the fans wanted him, and it's easy to just pinpoint and blame him. But there have been a lot of goals that haven't just come from the right flank of Milan. They've also come from the left side of Milan, and Theo Hernandez has readily been involved in those. And I think the overemphasis on Emerson Royal's performances kind of takes the light away from Theo Hernandez's weak performances lately. I think he was really soft in that CDK goal. He didn't look over his shoulder to see where the player was coming from. Now, the general discussion has to be, what exactly is going on with Theo Hernandez? The fact of the matter is, guys, I actually don't know, because I'm reading a lot of conflicting reports. Some reports are talking about how a renewal is being discussed and Theo Hernandez is happy here. Other reports are suggesting that there's tension between Paulo Fonseca and Theo Hernandez. Initially, there was tension between Paulo Fonseca and Rafael Leao, but Leao has come out multiple times and talked about how, that tension has now been cleared between the coach and the player. He's also talked about how, especially after the match against the last match that Milan played against Sassuolo in the Coppa Italia, Rafael Leao came out and said, hey, you know what, we're like a family. We haven't heard anything even remotely like that from Theo Hernandez. So something tells me there might be a little bit of tension between Theo and the coach, or Theo and the general management. It's unclear, but his performances are definitely not showing that this is a player that is raring to win for this coach. And that's why for a weak performance today, he has to be put in the red box. And the first shout out from today's match, this one's going to go to our center backs in Matteo Gabbia and Malik Thiaw. I actually don't think the two center backs played very badly today. If you look at the mistakes that were made on the 2 goals, they were very similar mistakes made by the two fullbacks that Milan has. Gabbia, I felt like, was actually really good. The amount of times he bailed his team out, the amount of slide tackles he put in, blocks, important interceptions that Gabbia was involved in, you can't possibly say that it was a bad performance. Nothing from open play was allowed either by Gabbia or by Malik Thiaw. And with a side like Atalanta that plays such, beautiful football, they score a bunch of open play goals. Milan shut them out completely from that. It was two set piece goals that they actually ended up scoring from. Even from Malik Thiaw around the 9th minute, an important interception on a cross that came in for Atalanta. Around the 50th minute, he put in a slide tackle. Well, a slide clearance with a pass going from Lookman right across the face of goal. If he hadn't intercepted that, that was an easy open and tap in for an Atalanta player. He's the one who cleared it out for a corner kick. So individually, I felt like our two center backs actually played a pretty good game today. And the second takeaway from today's match, naturally, it's going to be another red box. And this one goes out to Theo Hernandez's partner on the other flank, Emerson Royal. And now before we jump into Emerson's performance today, I want you guys to listen to this take from Nicko Kostopoulos. I asked him, what he thought about the 2 goals that Milan scored. He hosts the Milanista Report on Milanista's 360 YouTube channel. With some experience having coached at the youth level, I like his takes on, Milan's defensive issues. And he gives a pretty simple analysis on the 2 goals that Milan conceded today. So take a listen.
First goal that we ate, Theo wasn't marking his man on that free kick. Didn't check his back shoulder, goal. Same thing with the second goal from the corner kick. Royal didn't check his back shoulder, which you should be doing at all times, knowing where your opponent is on the field. And Lookman was wide open on the back post for the header. Players need to constantly scan the field. Good high-level players with a good IQ, I should say, should be scanning the field 4 to 6 times every 10 to 15 seconds. That's a fact. That's something that's been taught at the academy level at as young as 12 years old.
And I think that kind of says it all. Youth players are taught to do things that our professional players are not consistently doing in the most important of matches for the season. You look at how Milan conceded both of those goals. There was a pattern there, both with Theo. Didn't scan back, didn't see where CDK was, and easily overpowered. On the other flank, Emerson Royal, every single time that the broadcaster played a replay of that Lookman goal, it was painful to watch the positioning of Emerson Royal. Every replay, you want to scream at the guy and say, cover your man. What? You're marking air. You're not looking around where your opponent even is. And the sad part about Emerson's performance today, he actually arguably played, at least in my opinion, one of his better matches today. Especially the fact that it was against a top side like Atalanta. I was impressed with how Emerson was playing. But then the mistake that was made, we know how he conceded the second goal. It came off a corner. But how was that corner kick won? If you watch what happened, it was Lookman who was left completely unmarked by the 2 guys who were supposed to be marking him, Yunus Musah and Emerson Royal. Both of them just abandoned the guy for some reason. He was left completely unmarked, got the pass, made a drive towards Mike, gets a shot, and Mike was forced into yet another save. And then that corner kick comes in, Emerson completely ignores wherever Lookman's positioning is, and Atalanta score a second goal. And the next shout out from today's match, this one has to go to the goal scorer, Alvaro Morata. Outside of really scoring that goal, there's not much else to say about Morata. I mean, he definitely helped out a lot defensively today as well. The amount of times he dropped back for the team, at times Leao would stay more forward, Morata would drop back. We were kind of used to it. He won possession a few times. He also lost possession a few times. There were also some fouls committed by Morata. So there was that assistance defensively, but at the end of the day, he's been signed on to be a striker for Milan, score goals. He's been doing that a little bit more recently. That was not an easy finish, let's be real. It was a tough pass into meet, needed a high quality striker to be able to finish that, get it past the goalkeeper. He did that and he deserves a shout out for that. And the next is going to be a call out for today's match. I'm going to give this call out to Yunus Musah, and mostly because the first goal that Milan conceded, it was a foul that was committed by Yunus Musah for really no reason. At that point in time, they'd already taken a corner kick. It was pretty dangerous. Milan was able to get away with it. The way that Musah sort of forced himself onto the game, and he gets a little bit too aggressive at times, tries to do too much, and ends up getting caught in awkward positions. That is what happened today. Gave up that free kick. Martin Derun stepped in, and CDK scored that goal. Even on the second goal, as I already talked about, Emerson Royal and Yunus Musah, you got the sense, were more responsible for handling Lookman today, and they both left him completely unmarked, just wandering around. Lookman was stunned that he was left on an island. He got the ball. Manuel gets that save in, but they scored from that corner kick too. So I feel like Yunus Musah was actually actively involved in some ways in Milan conceding both of those goals. Felt like it wasn't a very responsible performance from Yunus, and I think that's why he deserves to at least be called out. And the next takeaway from today's match is going to be a red box that goes out to Johnny Reijnders. It's sad because the guy's been picking up gold boxes and rare performance ratings in the past few matches, and just disappeared. He never really managed to assert himself onto the match. There were some parts, maybe in the last 15 to 20 minutes of the game, that you felt like Reijnders livened up a little bit. A little bit of Milan's gameplay was going through him. The coach had already talked about how it was going to be a more of a game that was played on the flanks, less so through the middle of the park. But still, you want Reijnders the form that he has been in, you want him to be so much more dominant in a match like today. You want him to be, at least assert yourself onto the game. It's weird that I'm thinking about Luka Jovic right now, but I had this complaint from Jovic. He was a shadow. You never actually watched and never saw him on the field in the game. And I kind of felt like that about Tijani Reijnders for the first 70, 75, maybe even 80 minutes. In a big match, it's good that you score in smaller matches. It gets your confidence up, makes you believe in yourself, gets you ready for the big game. But when the big game comes around and you fall this flat, that's too much. But you have to say Reijnders deserves it. And the next topic is going to be more of a pointed discussion about Christian Pulisic. I would be lying if I were to say that I'm not a little bit concerned about Christian at this point in time. I would just be trying to appease people by saying, oh, everything's perfect, everything's great. There's an obvious downtick in form. It has been in Serie A 2 months. 2 months since Pulisic has scored a goal. He had a fire start to the season. And when you have a start like that, you're scoring, you're assisting, you're going crazy in the league. He's assisted goals, but the last time he scored a goal was against Fiorentina on October 6th. Today's December 6th. So it's been a while since we've seen a goal from him in the league. He scored 2 goals in the Champions League, scored against Club Brugge, scored against Slovan Bratislava. But, we need that Christian. We're struggling in the league right now. In the Champions League, at least Milan has, picked up 3 wins after the first 2 losses. In Serie A, we're desperate right now. And I think that's the part that has been a little bit frustrating about this team, is that in the beginning phase of the season, we had more of, Christian Pulisic performing, and the rest of the team was, there were question marks around Leao, around Theo Hernandez. Then we are now going through a phase where players like Rafael Leao and Tijani Reijnders are, giving you something, but a player of the quality of Christian Pulisic has gone a little bit silent. Even in the beginning of today's game, he got a good opportunity to be able to score a goal. I actually thought that the shot by Pulisic was pretty good. It was a very good save by their goalkeeper. You can always look back and say, oh, maybe if he had just placed it a little bit lower or more into the top corner, maybe something different would have happened. I guess we could play that game, but it wasn't a bad shot by Christian. But I just think that the downtick in his form, it can't just be ignored. He's had a splendid 2024, probably the best, year and 2 months of his career. But now that we're entering the middle phase of the season and, not quite the business end right now, but the fact that the team is sitting in 7th place in Serie A, you need your top stars to be performing. He didn't really do that today while he was on the pitch. And over the past couple months, he hasn't quite been consistent enough. He also picked up a potential injury today. A lot of Milan fans that complained about Paulo Fonseca and why he played Pulisic in the last match, I guess they were right. The fact that Milan was up 4-0 against Sassuolo just 2 days ago, probably there was no reason to play Christian. He did play him, and maybe we paid for it a little bit today by him picking up a calf strain. Now, the good news, as I said, seems to be that it's not going to be a long-term miss. I'm assuming he'll be back for the next game. Maybe precautionarily, they might rest him for the next match in the Champions League against, I think, Crvena Zvezda. But the only thing at this point in time that I'm hoping is that we have a little bit more of that Pulisic that we had at the beginning of the season, going into the middle phase now. And you guys let me know in the comment section, am I being too harsh? Or the fact that he actually hasn't scored a goal in 2 months in Serie A is indicative of his downturn in form. And the next shout out from today's match, this one has to go to the guy who assisted the goal in Rafael Leao. Now, in the last 6 matches, he's contributed to, I think, 6 goals, scored 4 of them, assisted twice. So I think it's pretty certain that he seems to be back in form. He just needs his teammates to be clicking as well now. He seemed to have a much better first half. He was involved both in attack, really running around in the midfield, helping his team out, playing like a unit, helping out in defense too. But tale of 2 halves. That second half from Rafael Leao was painful to watch. We didn't really see him. He wasn't really that involved. Now, someone put out a heat map of Milan's squad and the way that they were moving. I'll try and put this in this video. If I don't find it, I won't be able to, put an image of that. But that heat map, just take my word for it, it looked like Milan's squad was much more focused on the right side of the field, not really playing that much to the left side, which you have to ask some questions about because that's usually where Leao plays. At times, I actually noticed today Leao drifting more to the right and playing on the right flank. There were, the commentator was talking about how Bellanova has really good pace and he might be one of the few defenders in the league that can match up with Rafael Leao when it comes to pace. He can match up with Theo Hernandez when it comes to pace. So that may have been the reason why Milan was trying to play more a little bit from the right flank and pushing even Leao at times to the right flank. But you definitely felt like the Rafael Leao Milan had in the first half was not really that present in the second half. But to be fair to him, Milan really didn't look like they wanted to attack that much in the second half. And that's what's going to drift us into our next takeaway, which is going to have to be for the coach in Paulo Fonseca. Now, as I said in the beginning of the video, I have a choice. I can go helter-skelter, everything is doom and gloom, everything's falling apart, or I can just try and be rational in how we kind of parse through this. A lot of you guys have been commenting and asking me, Kush, have you finally given up on Paulo Fonseca? Are you finally ready to say that he should be fired? My question to you guys is the thought process that I have in my mind. Let me actually not ask you a question. Let me express my thought process. We're saying we can't trust Paulo Fonseca. We're saying we can't trust the management. And we're saying we can't trust the ownership group. So what exactly are we going to get from firing Paulo Fonseca? Probably another manager that we don't like, because we clearly can't trust the upper management. So I can scream and yell and, turn things upside down. I don't really think much of anything is going to change. I actually think, unfortunately, we're going to be going with this coach at least for the entirety of this season. And the one thing that I'll say about the guy, he's not a dud. He's not stupid like a lot of people want to say online. He explicitly mentioned before the match even kicked off that today's game is not necessarily, the middle part of the midfield game. It's going to be a game played from the flanks. That's where this game is going to be played from both the teams. If you look at all the goals that were scored, I mean, to be fair, they were, set pieces, but they came from the flanks, really. A lot of the attacks that were created by both the teams that looked dangerous, they were all coming from the sides. And the coach predicted that. He explicitly predicted today that Alvaro Morata and Rafael Leao are actually going to be the key pieces to Milan because of the way that he's setting them up. And who scored the goal? Alvaro Morata. Who assisted the goal? Rafael Leao. So you can say what you want about the coach. He's obviously an intelligent guy. I think we have to look at our opponents and we have to look at ourselves. Atalanta is a side that has now won 9 straight Serie A matches. We're not playing a Cagliari or a Parma where we're not getting the right result. You're playing arguably the best team in the league who's fighting for the Scudetto at their home stadium. And we actually went toe-to-toe with them, at least for the first 45 minutes. We looked pretty solid. And I'm embarrassed by how the team played in the second half. That's a different take. A lot of people talked about this, and it's right. If you're going to be playing for a draw as AC Milan, if you're going to be playing for a draw against Atalanta, you're probably going to lose the game. Because Atalanta didn't play for the draw. They played for the win and they picked up the 3 points. They took a risk. They took a chance. They had the courage, and they also have really good personnel. They're not an easy side to beat. Look, the fact of the matter is that at this point in time, Milan sits in 7th place in the league. They have a risk of falling to 8th place. I think they have 22 points. That's bad. Last season, after 14 games, they had 29 points sitting in 3rd. Season before that, they had 30 points sitting in 3rd. Season before that, they had 32 points sitting in 2nd. Season before that, they had 34 points sitting in 1st place. And the season before that, this was, maybe weeks after Stefano Pioli had come to Milan, 17 points sitting in 11th place. So this is Milan's worst start in the first 14 matches in 5 years now, in half a decade. Massive amount of blame for that has to fall on the coach's head. There's no question about that. But if anybody tries to tell me that, we should have just held on to Stefano Pioli, that's not the answer either. My point isn't that Paulo Fonseca is the answer, but I know that Stefano Pioli wasn't either. He had run out his cycle. If there's anybody that we should be blaming through all of this, it has to be the management. It has to be the management above Fonseca, the ones that hired this guy. You can actually tell that Fonseca's trying to change some things. The way that Milan played in that first half, I barely ever saw this team play with that much courage, taking that many chances, playing in a different manner at any point, almost any point last season under Stefano Pioli. My point is that some things have to be placed on Fonseca's head without a shadow of a doubt, but all of the problems of Milan, I don't think is going to change much if he changed the coach. That doesn't mean that I'm against Fonseca's firing. Fire him. Get somebody better. I'm not his agent getting a commission from this. I'm happy getting as good a coach as Milan can get right now. I actually think a lot of the fault is in the upper management. It's very clear now with 2.5 years of this ownership that the ambition is not quite there. They're really not trying to win. It seems like their focus actually is on creating a financial foundation for this club that they can maybe two things that maybe that they can then build on to build a really good team that wins, or to just flip the asset and sell the club. I'm actually not 100% sure. The rational person in me would say that they want to build on it. The cynic in me would say that they just want to, get their profit and move on. And I think the issues for this club, they start from the top, and it's complete lack of ambition. And you almost feel like, it's going to be twisted to say it this way and it's going to be painful for the fans, but missing Champions League, that might actually be the only thing that wakes up this management, because that's when they truly lose the dollars. Because if us fans are saying that they have no ambition, but they only care about money, trust me, nothing impacts their money more than missing out on Champions League football. And when it comes to, do I support Paulo Fonseca or not? I think I've seen Fonseca bring about some good things to this club, and I've seen him bring about some not so good things to this club. But the fact is, when you're sitting in 7th place, risking an 8th place at this point in time in the season, with the worst first 14 matches in 5 years, in half a decade, some serious question marks have to be asked. But I think it's our responsibility to call out the right group first and then come after the coach. Let's not scapegoat the coach when it seems like the problem starts from a little bit further above. And there you have it, Milanisti. Those are the 4 takeaways from today's match. Nothing that I can say to you that is going to make you guys feel better. Unfortunately, it's one of those days. The only thing that I can say is that it's still only 14 games into the season. We're not even halfway through the season, guys. A lot can change from this point onwards. The one maybe little bright piece of hope that I can see here is that Milan's schedule. Next match is against Crvena Zvezda. One after that is Genoa, Verona. Roma is not looking very good. Cagliari, Como, and then Milan plays Juventus, on the 19th of January. The only thing that you can hope is that they can go on a string of right results over the next, I guess, basically month. Get their confidence back up. Hope that other teams drop points. At this point in time, you have to start hoping for these things, unfortunately, and then climb their way back into the Champions League. And from my side, as always, especially in a loss, Forza Milan, grazie mille, ciao tutti. This is style of play and the scandals. Oh, the scandals, including a bizarre locker room incident where a player essentially drugged his own teammates. And we'll look at how lowering Serie A from 20 teams to 18 teams might be the